Well, hello, fans and listeners. This is the Detour podcast / YouTube, normally hosted by Dan Jones and myself, John Trevorrow, but I've sacked Dan tonight. Talking about the dream team, the women's dream team, and we did it last week with the men's, and we had too many people, so I've sacked Dan. He says he didn't know anything about women's cycling anyway, which is not true, and he actually sacked himself. So, but that's fine. And everyone who's watching will see some shadows in the background. And for those who are listening on the podcast, I will talk about it. But we're going to be talking about the women's dream team, and we've got three of the experts of Australian cycling to keep me in check. First of all, we've got Kate Bates, who everyone will know from TV hosting, especially of the World had just gone. Absolutely a great job. And on the board of the organising committee for our World Championships, Wollongong World Championships next year, which is very exciting.
Very exciting.
Multi-Olympian, 2004, 2008, 2007 World Points Race champion. Even more impressive, dual winner of the Bay Crits.
Definitely my
2006. Yeah. Multinational track champion, national road champion, and Commonwealth Games gold medalist. So welcome aboard, Kate.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Also, we have Gracie Elvin, who Olympian, twice Commonwealth Games, dual national road champion, I think 7 years pro with Green Edge, and also a winner of the Bay Crits. So there you go.
I'm leaving.
And then Donna Rae Szalinski, who might not have won the Bay Crits because she stopped racing before they started. I'm sure you would have gone close. But fellow Geelongite with me, and one of the legends in the coaching side of women's cycling, especially performance pathway coach, consultant with Aus Cycling, has her own coaching business down in Geelong, Cycle Edge, but former pro herself, rode the Tour de France in 86, I think 87 and 88. And raced as an Aussie, even though she's born in Canada, we'll call her Aussie, in the national team from right through to 92. So welcome aboard, ladies.
It's great to be here. And great to see you, Gracie and Donna Rae. It's fantastic to have you guys here as well.
Well, I'm just glad to be always lovely to catch up.
So we're going to be talking about the dream team. We're talking about if all of the Aussie team, Aussie riders, potential for next year, we're able to be in one Australian pro team. What would we do with them? Who would we have? Whatever. But also the World Championships are on right now, and last night was the mixed team time trial, and just before we came to here, I said I love it, and Kate, you said you don't. So what don't you like about it, Kate?
Yeah. Well, I think, John, I'm a bit of a traditionalist. I mean, I never thought of myself that way, to be honest, but there's something about it that I'm like, really, like we dropped so many really cool events that I feel like we haven't really given them a chance. And like, I love the pro team's time trial. I thought that was really cool. I think we've lost so many events on the track that are so cool. I think if we look toward Olympics or something like that, which they're kind of talking about this event going toward the Olympics, that, you know, what about some other mountain bike events potentially, or cross country or something like that? I don't know. It doesn't really capture my imagination. In saying that, a very long-lasting memory for me will be Tony Martin's reaction to winning it. So I think that a rainbow jersey is a rainbow jersey, and it certainly means a lot to the athletes who win it.
He's only won about 12 of them.
Yeah.
Something like that, some ridiculous number. But look, it was quite exciting. Matter of fact, he chipped someone the other day when he rode the individual time trial, did a great ride, and someone said to him, "Oh, well, now you're finished." He said, "No, I have the mixed team time trial to come." So he was right up for it. Gracie, what do you think of the mixed team time trial?
I'm actually with Kate on this one. We had a bit of a chat about it earlier today, and I really think that the trade team time trial was really important because the World Championships is kind of like the climax of the season, and you race all year with your trade team, and it's really it's such an honor to wear your national jersey in the road race. But I think that the trade teams need their chance to get a world title as well, because so much goes into a trade team, sponsors, supporters, all the staff working all year round. It was really special for, that handful of years where trade teams could take away a world championship. And for some riders, that's their only way to get to the World Championships. Imagine being a Dutch rider. You probably really struggle to get on that national team for a road race, or definitely a time trial. So it's really opens up the door to many more riders being able to participate in a World Championships. And I think that's really important. I'm really interested to know if Kate or Donna have actually done a team time trial, if that was a thing back in the day, a non-track team time trial.
Back in the day. She's throwing the shade out early.
Whack.
Well,
So Grace,
go, Donna. Over to you for that
so
one.
I actually did the
You're
team
way
time
back in the
trial
day.
back in the dark ages, or was I middle ages? I'm not sure which. I did the team time trial as an event, and it was really a lot of fun. I respect what both of you are saying about the pros and cons, more the cons of the mixed team time trial, but I just like it because it's a great platform for both the men's and the women's teams at the same time. It generates some national pride. I think it's a cool event.
I got a question for you, either Gracie or Katie, but I thought it was the pro teams that really didn't support it enough, and that's why it fell away. I didn't think it was the UCI that cut it out. Why did the trade team time trial stop the Worlds?
That's actually a really good point, and you're right. There's a lot of trade teams that couldn't justify the cost to go to World Championships, let alone all of the prep you need in the season. It's actually a lot of work to get a team time trial to a championship. You have to do at least 1 or 2 camps in the season, working together, working out your strategy, a lot of practice. So that takes a lot of effort in itself, and a lot of teams struggle to do camps in the first place. And then it costs probably another, I can't even say, 10 to 20,000 euro to get the team to wherever the World Championship is, and that's the cost of the trade team, not a national team. So yeah, I can see why a lot of teams who don't think that they'll be in contention for a medal just wouldn't want to go. That's the tricky part of it.
Now, we've got a couple of fan comments, so we'll have a look. So, C. Mallet won World Championships in Kigali, Rwanda, just announced for 2025. How's that for awesome news?
How good is that? That is absolutely sensational. I mean, I think I probably have a lot of criticisms of the UCI if we really want to drill down to that, which we don't, because we want to have some fun here. But I think that this is something good that the UCI has been doing in trying to support events across different continents. And we value it here in Australia with Tour Down Under, of course, and the Sun Tour, Johnny, very close to your heart. And so we get the value out of that. And I do think that having a World Championship in Rwanda, like imagine what that means to the inspiration and the motivation of cyclists in Rwanda. And we've had some really good projects over the years that have kind of worked on development there and really trying to get that. And of course, a very big value, if you really want to look at it, is probably Chris Froome's success as well. Being the first African rider to, I know the Brits will claim him, but the first African-born rider to win the Tour de France has worked as great inspiration for them. And so I think this is a huge opportunity. We've got it in Australia next year, as you know, John. So it's we're pretty excited by that. So imagine what this does for a country who is still really on that development path.
Yeah. Ladies, what do you think? We'll get to Tommy in a minute. What do you think?
But in this instance, the UCI has to make sure that they are really supporting a country like this. It's certainly not on the scale of an Olympics, but we've seen like big events such as the Olympics in more poorer countries actually not providing that economic stimulus as it should. And it costs countries a lot of money to host major events. So I'd really love to see the UCI make sure that they're subsidizing an event like this so everyone's a winner out of it.
And we just got something through from Tommy Maloney, an old racing mate of mine. Agreed, Kate. We don't want to be going down swimming's path with so many events while our traditional events are being excluded. Well, he was going back to our talk before. And look, hey, I'm a traditionalist too. I mean, I reckon the worst thing they ever did at the Olympics was to drop the individual pursuit and the kilometre time trial. Two of my favourite events.
What about the points race, Johnny? What about the points race?
I was about to get to the points race, but but they bring stupid events on in place of it. But anyway, so I'm with you on that. But I like the teams, the mixed team time trial because it brings the women and the men together, which I think is fantastic. So anyway, moving on. So, can't help but noticing the contrast tonight. All the lovelies and Iffy. Yeah, well,
are you the rose amongst the thorn, John? Do you think tonight? Is that what he's trying to say?
Didn't have a chance to put my lippy on or anything, but anyway, it was the vibe. So I just thought we'd move on. We're talking about this, the dream team, and we set a list through of all of the current pros, and there's quite a few of them. But what you ladies are more in touch with the up and comers. Who are some of the really good youngsters who you think could fit into the World Tour next year?
Donna. I'm going to throw it out there.
Yep, you jump in here whenever you can.
I'm just jumping right in. I'll throw it out there. I can't wait to see Ruby Rose McGannon race in the World Tour next year.
Yes, I've heard rumours that she's signed a pro contract, but we're not allowed to say where she's going.
Nope.
But, well, she's been exciting. She's only a youngster. She won the, whatever you call the almost Grafton to Winfrell, but whatever the women's version of that this year. And she's been really exciting on the national scene. So what about you, Gracie? Have you seen much of her racing?
I have raced against her and been beaten by her recently. So, I always say that she's one to watch if she's lining up in a race. Like definitely at the Nationals this year and the Nationals last year, she was one of the best, and she was really only coming out of juniors. So she's only going to get better, and she's so well supported in the ARA team. They've really made this great environment for both young men and women to grow and develop. So I'm really excited to see what she can do in Europe. I think it's going to be a bit of an eye-opener for her, but I think she's got that nice quiet confidence and maturity for her age, and I think she'll really make the most of any opportunities given and just soak up all of the experiences. So I don't know, Kate, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I really agree with what you say about the setup that ARA has, because I think that integrating the men and the women in the same program just offers so many development opportunities, even from a strategic point of view. And that's something that traditionally cycling has really lacked. And I think that in many ways, Australia is really leading the forefront in development there. The person that I'm really excited to see step up is Frankie Sewell. Now, I followed her on the track as a junior. She is sensational. She's got such a good attitude, and I think physiologically she's got a lot of capabilities, and I really want to make sure she's shepherded very well through the next couple of years of development, because, Donna, I think that you would agree when you see a young rider, and she is very young, with such talent, you need to really make sure that pathway is nurtured.
Well, for sure. And it isn't a 6-month transition, as both of you know. It takes years to make your way into that level. But Frankie, she's an exciting young rider. She's gutsy. She's got a bright future.
And any others popping up in the horizon? I mean, we'll go through all of the girls that are sort of currently riding at either World Tour or Conti level, and there's quite a few there. But it's good to hear you talking about these other up-and-comers, although I think Frankie was in the Rock Salt team, was she this year? Yeah.
Yeah, she was. I mean, John, I think we can't go past how young Sarah Gigante is, because she's so accomplished already, an Olympian, which is unusual on the road. It's often that you see riders that age as an Olympian on the track, but not on the road. And it's easy to look at her development and kind of discount her as one of the young riders. She's already stepped up to that World Tour level, which is really exciting for her. But I think we also need to acknowledge just how young she is, and that sometimes for the women, because we lack the under-23 category, there's a gap. There's a real gap between going to the Junior World Championships and being NRS and being super talented. Your only chance then is to go essentially to the World Tour. That's a big step. I mean, as Donna said, it's not a 6-month journey at all, and teams, as they're professionalizing more, fantastically, a lot of the men's teams and Cofidis, we see it next year happening, they're broadening into having a women's team as well. It offers some more development opportunities for the women in a way that we haven't seen in the past. And so I think that Sarah Gigante's age and development so far, it actually adds a lot of inspiration to the NRS riders who wonder how they can take that next step. And it may be a giant leap, but I think that it is becoming more possible for them to take that.
Yeah, she's pretty amazing, isn't she? Is it time the UCI holds a women's under-23 road race? Well, look, I'll throw it to you girls straight away, but my thoughts on it, and also with the men's, is that maybe it should be even dropped down to an under-21, because they're winning the Tour de France at 21 years of age now. Is the under-23 actually the correct age group to be looking at development? I think maybe it should be dropped to an under-21. Anyway, go for it, girls.
Yeah, Donna, this is on you, I think, for the way
I'd be very happy with an under-23. I had this discussion, and I'm going to throw myself under the bus with the UCI at Worlds the year that Rach Nalen got the silver medal. And they sort of said, yep, we're going to do that. We promise we'll do it at the end of this cycle of the World Championships we've already announced. And that ended in 2017, and I'm still waiting.
It's an interesting one, John. I think you are right in the under-21 classification, but I think that's for the men, because I think the men have had, a decade to develop in that. And yes, the riders are developing younger. I mean, it's actually, when I saw the Tour de France podium and they had their children on the podium, I was like, that's children with children. Like, they seem so young to me. But for the women, I think we're not there yet. And an under-23 category would mean so much and would really allow them to take that safe step, because at the moment, if you think about it, it's under-19 to World Tour, and that is a huge, chasm to close. And I think for some riders who may be, physiologically developed earlier, then great. But a lot of, especially female athletes, don't develop until a little bit later, and this would really close that gap for them. I mean, Gracie, you would have seen a lot of the young riders who have big results on one day, but the next day they finish nearly dead last. Like, the inconsistency is a real thing with those young riders, and so the World Tour isn't necessarily the place for them.
I completely agree. I don't think that we need to lower that age to 21. I think under 23 for both men and women is appropriate. I think we always will have outliers that are younger, that are achieving great things, but there are actually not many of them. It just seems like it because that's all we read about. But there's so many in both men and women that are just trying to develop and just trying to get through. And, you know, you hear it in the under 19s, like, I'm first year under 19 and I'm second year under 19 and this is my last shot. And there's so much pressure on them to just, you know, make the most of that last shot at a world title as a junior. And I think if you can give them 3 more, well, what would that be, 4 more years of a under 23 title, that just takes that pressure off them. Because I personally I'm not a full supporter of the junior world championship category. I don't think that it should be taken away completely, but I think it has its issues. But I think putting that pressure on such young people and then not giving them a stepping stone is actually really dangerous, and you lose so many athletes in that age group, especially women.
Yeah, it's Gracie, that's a really good point. And the thing I think of is I reflect on my junior world championships when at the time there was a big Dutch team called Farm Fritz, which was kind of run and head by Leontien van Moorsel, who had just won Olympic gold in Sydney. Well, a couple actually. She won the individual pursuit and the individual time trial. And the Dutch riders who were successful at Junior Worlds got an opportunity with Farm Fritz because that was the logical path of development for them. But for Australians, we didn't have that path because they only knew us from one performance at Junior Worlds. And so they weren't really able to offer that next opportunity of continuity for us of development. And, you know, that creates a giant gap. And I agree with you that if you extended that to under 23s, it gives you more opportunities to race, to let people see you, to let teams see you and give you opportunities, but probably more than that, to decide if this is the life that you want to follow. Because I think, Gracie and Donna, you'd both agree that there's a lot of 18-year-old girls who love cycling and think that this is it for them. But by the time they develop a couple of years further, I can see the smirk on your face, Donna, that they decide at 21 or 22 that actually they want to do really different things with their life. And you're almost putting so much pressure on the women at such a young age that it is literally now or never. And developmentally, I see so many issues with that.
It forces them to have to pick between going to university and pursuing an education or being a full-time bike rider. And, you know, it's so difficult because at that age, if they do want to become a full-time bike rider, they have to leave, go live in Europe. And that's hard enough when you're 22 or 23. But to do that as an 18-year-old, it's challenging.
Yeah.
Now we're about to move on to the actual 2022 season, but I just thought before we do, I thought ask you, Gracie. Oh, something wrong with my microphone there.
Oh, we can hear you, Johnny.
Yeah, you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, twice, exactly. I'm twice as good as I used to be. But would you, see, the UCI have been announcing the new pay structure for women's cycling. It's being staggered in. I just wanted to get you, and some of the teams are already paying a minimum wage, the same as the men. I know Bike Exchange is doing that, a couple of the other teams. So what are your thoughts on that, Gracie, and is it happening quick enough?
That's a great question. It's a tricky situation. The UCI brought in the minimum wage 2 years ago now, which is a really fantastic step for women's cycling, but it doesn't come without consequences. Some teams just don't have that budget to match what is required, and that's why we now see the World Tour system. So women's cycling never really had tiers like men's cycling does. We don't really have a continental level per se, but now it's a little bit more tiered where we have a World Tour structure and then everyone else. And there's probably over 50 women's teams around the world that are UCI registered, and most of them have a really tiny budget and they're just getting by on the smell of an oily rag. But the women's World Tour teams are getting much better budgets nowadays, which is awesome to see. And we see a lot of men's teams starting up a women's team alongside their men's flagship, which is great. I don't think that it's absolutely mandatory that all men's teams should have a women's team. We want them to want to do it. We don't want these women's teams to be an afterthought. So it's great to see some of these bigger teams, putting their money where their mouth is and doing a really good job. And Bike Exchange has been doing it for a long time now. Trek is doing an absolutely fabulous job. Movistar are really bolstering their team, and I can rattle off plenty more, and they're matching these requirements for minimum salaries, and the UCI is slowly increasing these salaries, the minimum requirements every year, just by a few €1,000. Some riders are a bit confused because there's actually a contracted rider or an employed rider, and many riders don't understand what the differences are when they're signing their contracts. And it really just comes down to what you have to pay as a rider. Like, do you have to pay your license and insurance and things like that? So that stuff can really add up. So it's really important that riders are really getting a better knowledge of, what a good contract is looking like. And nowadays we actually have rules that say that World Tour teams also have to have a maternity leave clause in there. And for sport, that's quite groundbreaking, really. And I think something that's, really important in women's sport in general, but certainly in women's cycling. We have some great mothers that are winning big races, and they're great role models. So it's not just about the money, it's about all of the other conditions as well.
Yeah. Gracie, sorry. I wanted to jump in for
go.
a second.
Yeah.
It's such a big point that you make, Gracie, because the maternity thing is such a new concept for cycling, and we're a little bit behind. I mean, I think, look at Caleb Ewan. He's got, young children, and he's young himself, and he's able to do that and continue his career. And I always felt, and, I am a decade old in terms of professional cycling, but it was very clear to me, and Donna as well for you, that if you wanted a family, you had to end your professional cycling career well before what was considered your cycling best. So we're seeing a lot of the female athletes now excel in their 30s. Ellen van Dijk just won the time trial at 36. And it's such an unfair expectation that you have on the women that they have to choose between having a family or having a professional career. And, I find that mind-blowing. So I love that you brought that up, Gracie, because I think that's a real emerging issue. And, I get cranky at Ineos, and I get cranky at Lefebvre, but for his comments around women's cycling.
I was going to jump in with that one. Because I don't think we will get the Koenig Quickstep. I don't think they're going to be having a women's team anytime in the near future.
No, and look, I think that is a standard that in Australia we no longer accept. We no longer accept a male in a male sport saying women's sport's not economically viable. It is, but you have to be brave enough and I guess morally robust enough to follow it. He is not. He can get in the bin as far as I'm concerned. But I think Gracie makes some really good points around kind of the emerging issues around cycling and in women's cycling. And do you know what else? It's something that I have noticed really lately. One of the riders that's going for the UCI Athletes Commission is the partner, Thomas, of a former female cyclist, Abby Mickey. And he is so, I hate to say the word, but progressive. Like, he supports the women so much. I hate that I have to say that. I can see you cringing, Donna and Gracie. But he is, because he supports women's cycling to such a degree that it's normalized. And I think that that's really where we need to get to. And we need men in positions of power that it's normalized. And you know what else I noticed, guys? And Gracie and Donna, if you log on, you will really notice this too, to Pro Cycling Stats. They have women's road race, under 23 men's road race, and then road race. It's not the men's road race. And I wanted to send them an email today and say, hey, like women's, men's, but by making it road race and then women's road race, you're really putting the women below the men. And John, when we talk about these dream teams, I mean, this language and these words, they're meaningful and they're very impactful. And I think to move forward in the sport, to have these dream teams that we want to talk about, we need people to say women's and men's and not have women's and then road race for the men. Like people assume that road race means men.
Now we've got another fan comment slipping through. Jan Boardman. Question: World Tour teams and World Tour races for ladies. Tour de Raimondi is a new one for next year, which I saw. Great. But the ladies' teams are small. How many races can the teams cover in a season?
Yeah, good question. When I was racing recently, we'd probably average 50 to 60 race days in a year, sometimes more. So that's quite a lot, and that's definitely a struggle in women's cycling at the moment. There's not enough riders, and actually, more importantly, not enough staff and vehicles in women's teams to cover more than one program at a time. Men's World Tour teams have 20 to 30 riders on their roster, and they can be at 3 races at the same time, and women's cycling just cannot support that yet. I'd really like to see, which is happening actually next year, an increase in the number of women allowed per team. So that will open up the doors to both having more development riders in teams and also more rosters. And yeah, it takes money to be at these teams. So hopefully they'll also be able to bolster their vehicle fleet and their staff roster as well, because that's as important as the rider roster.
Now we're going to throw to a break and get a word from our wonderful partners in Bike Exchange and the Amy Gillett Foundation, and also we could have a quiet one in between. And I'd like to say a shout out to Jan Boardman, who just went the last question. She's a friend of mine in Britain who's been struggling in lockdown, but great to hear that you're still around talking to us, Jan. But anyway, let's listen from our great partners.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match, but not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Life is like a two-way street. It's about consideration and mutual respect. Roads are much the same. However you get around, walk, ride or drive, if we share our roads, we can all be safer. The Amy Gillett Foundation is Australia's peak cycling safety charity. Our mission is for safe cycling in Australia. Our vision is for 0 cyclist deaths. Over the last year, we've seen an enormous increase in people taking up cycling, whether it be for recreation, with the family, commuting, or even to start your own cycling career. We need to do more to make it safer for every cyclist. 20 cyclists every day are hospitalised, and 1 cyclist is killed every 10 days on Australian roads. So, the next time you jump on your bike or hop in your car, remember to practice the 4 C's. Be courteous, calm, considerate, and conscientious. Every cyclist death is preventable, and we all deserve to get home safely. Please donate to help the Amy Gillett Foundation make the roads safer for you and for me.
Well, welcome back. Too quick for me. I was still having a fight.
Can I just pick up off that and say that, firstly, lovely to hear Phil Liggett's voice, always. But it's the Amy Gillett Foundation, what happened with Amy really changed the environment for women's cycling in Australia. And I remember Amanda Spratt was on a train when she heard the news about Amy. She was in southern Italy on holidays. That was her development path, and it affected her, and it affected a whole generation of women cycling in Australia. And I think we kind of need to acknowledge that for the women back then, it wasn't professional. And, you know, Amy's death really affected a whole generation of women cycling and changed that development path. And so I think sometimes people can be quite harsh, if I can say that, about where the women's cycling is at. We get very excited about people getting big results, but we can also have some firm criticisms about where the development pathway is at. But I think we need to just acknowledge for a second that pathway was massively halted by an event that was, of course, incredibly outside our control and took out half of the national team. So I just want to thank Amy Gillett Foundation for coming on and supporting this as well, and just acknowledging that for the women's cyclists in Australia, it had a really huge impact, John. I mean, I can see the look on Donna's face, and I think that that's something that doesn't go past our minds on any day.
I think, Gracie, you've been at Turingen Tour, where I love the fact that every year they stop at Amy's memorial and recognize her. I think that is an amazing gesture.
Yeah, I can remember I was at the Tour de France when that tragic incident occurred, and I can remember the whole Tour de France was not just the Australians, but everyone was very, very deeply affected. And I remember coming back and catching up with Simon, and that's how we did the first Amy's Ride as part of the Bay Crits back many years ago. Yeah, they're a fantastic organisation. And Katie Brown, Kate's been working with us and helping us with our marketing and promotion of the Detour, and that's why we've formed a lovely partnership. So thanks for your beautiful words there, Kate. That was sensational. We now have more viewer comments, so we'll keep them coming through. Tommy Maloney, the change brought on by women's racing with Footscray Club from let's face it, a highlight misogynistic environment to a more comprehensive one is remarkable. With good sense being expressed tonight, hopefully our sport and world can progress. Here, progressive. On your Tommy. Sally Ilson, it's so great to hear the ladies' perspective on their sport.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Jan Boydman again. Jan Boydman, thanks, John. Still struggling, but loving the ladies racing. Great that you have so much content specifically for ladies racing. Hopefully others will follow suit. Go for Kate.
Well, look at this. Annette Miller on the coverage last night. It was mentioned that I think it was a trek that the support staff work across both the men's and women's teams. I, for one, think this is the best approach. I mean, I think probably, and Gracie and Donna, I'd be really interested in your views on this. But what I dream of in cycling is that it's not women's cycling, that it's just cycling. And they are a female athlete, they're a male athlete, whatever they identify as. I think that is the place that we need to get to. And I love that the support staff work across, because Gracie, as I understand, and you've probably experienced this too, that a lot of the team staff were like developed in the women's and then moved on to the men's as though there was a real hierarchy in that. And the hierarchy, I think throw that in the bin as well. With Lefebvre, that can go. And it's a really good thing that these teams, and Trek is so progressive to that, and their athlete results really show the results of that. But they're kind of seeing that they're just a team, not two teams, a team. Some race in men's, some race in women's, and whatever they identify as, they race in, and that's that.
Yeah. That's exactly right, Kate. That's what's starting to happen now. You see it with Movistar, really embracing that. Bike Exchange have for a while, and a lot more teams. Great that Cofidis are now bringing a women's team on and doing it properly, doing it correctly, not just as an afterthought. We better bring in a women's team. I think the Koenig Quick Step will be a while, but Patrick Lefevre has been showing his true colours of late. The stuff that he was going on with Sam Bennett, how badly he handled all of that, even managed to bring oppressed women into that conversation. And then now what he's done here, and he hasn't even been correct in his statements. He, dropped, not even noticing half the Belgian women who are racing. So an absolute clown. But anyway, very successful in other areas. Kirsty Baxter says, great show. Yep.
No, sorry. I think someone summed it up on Twitter today when they said, who wants to ride in his team anyway?
His women's team. Well, his men's team goes all right. Anyway.
Well, a women's team.
Oh, right. Kirsty Baxter says, great show tonight. Women's cycling has come a long way, but still a long way to go. Important to continue to provide platforms and hands-ups to help continue to grow. Great initiative set up by Gracie and Cycling Alliance, re-mentoring program to provide tools and advice off the bike for the women to broaden their skill sets. Yeah, very, very, very true. And look, we're supposed to be talking about this dream team, but it's so good what you're talking about, so important. And I've seen it. Like, I love women's cycling. We get back to the Bay Quits. I think I was the first event in the world to offer the same prize money for the men and the women.
You were.
It's not huge prize money, so it was a bit easier to do. But that is catching on. The UCI were very slow to take the first step, but they're starting to do it a lot better now. And I can just see it going from strength to strength. The fact that we're getting all these new events coming on, Tour de France coming back, even though you've ridden 3 of them, Donna, the women haven't been able to do that in the last few years. I see the Giro, Donna, the women's Giro is back where it should be. And new races coming on. So I'm looking forward. The Paris-Roubaix, the classics, it's really starting to shape up as a proper season. Next year is going to be exciting.
Let's talk about this year's Paris-Roubaix for women. I cannot wait. Gracie, what do you think?
I'm equal parts excited and equal parts devastated that I'm not going to be racing it myself. But I've accepted that. I'm over it. It's going to be painful to watch, but no, it's just one of the events that have been needed. And it's a real big gap in the women's calendar now. There's not many races that we don't have, actually, that the men do. Big races, I mean. So it's well known. It's infamous. It's brutal. It's dramatic. I just can't wait to see, and I think it's going to be impossible to pick a winner. You have to have so much luck, as we all know from our good friend Maddie Heyman. You have to keep at it. You have to be persistent with that race. So this is the women's first crack. It doesn't matter what rider you are, what team. It's everyone's first shot, and it's going to be absolutely chaotic, but it's going to be such a wonderful thing for women's cycling and such a showcase and such a great opportunity for us to get exposure.
Yes, and I like the way the organisers have, done it properly. Okay, you've not the same distance. Women don't ride the same distance, but they've just gone bang. That's the last section of the Paris-Roubaix, and you're doing the whole lot. You're not missing any of the cobbles. It's really well put together.
I think it's interesting, John. Like picking up on what Gracie said, I think that it's about time, and the women now with Paris-Roubaix and with the Tour de France will have their chance to have some feeling of equality. Sure, we won't have the equality across the board necessarily with all of the events, but for those major ones. And Donna, I absolutely echo your sentiments that it is so exciting. And Gracie, I echo yours too. I mean, I'm a decade late, but I wish that I could ride it as well. It was certainly a race that I would have absolutely loved to be part of. And also welcome to retirement, I say, from both Donna and I, because you will spend the next probably decade or or plus. I'm thinking, oh, I wish that existed when I was around. And I suppose that in itself, John, is something that the women are new to. You know, the men, the current crop of young riders aren't thinking, oh, I wish I could be part of that. But the current crop of women riders are hoping that in their professional lifetime, they do get to partake in some of these events that the men do.
And Gracie, who do you reckon will be the strongest riders in Paris-Roubaix?
Oh, that's a tough question, John. For the Aussies, we have Grace Brown, who's stepped up massively this year. She's making herself known as one to be reckoned with in the one-day races, particularly the classics, and she's got some good skills as well. And to be honest, she has a really good race brain. She's kind of the whole package. So I think she can excel. In terms of internationals, we have Ellen van Dijk. She's a classic specialist. She just won the world's time trial this week. I've raced against her so many times and she terrifies me. So she's going to be one to be reckoned with. Look, the Dutch have a whole bunch of riders there. The Belgians have a lot of Kopecky, who's probably the favourite for the World Road Race this week, who's very competent on the cobbles. But I've done this course in training. I was still able to do the recon last year, and it's completely different to the Flanders cobbles. It's what everyone says. It's just something else. It just shredded my hands. It shredded my ass. It's like...
I actually think, John, that Donna probably has a really good view on how this works as a development path for the Aussie riders and also for the internationals. I mean, Donna, who do you see on our dream team of Aussie riders in 2022? Who do you see as being able to step up in the future years to ride something like Flanders? Because I think Ruby Rose Van Gannon is probably at the top of my list if she can learn to ride the cobbles.
Yeah, I agree. I think this would suit Ruby down to the ground. There's one name we haven't talked about yet tonight who's just finishing her first year racing, and that's Neve Bradbury.
Yeah.
Talking about someone who has amazing race instincts. It's like she was born on a bike. I very much look forward to what she's going to bring to the table.
But Donna, isn't it interesting that she came through Zwift Academy? Yeah. Like, isn't Zwift this incredible opportunity where we find kind of, I term it physiological beasts who haven't necessarily found the normal development pathway. And I think that's how our sport is evolving, because imagine kids that live in, country areas who maybe come from socioeconomic backgrounds that don't allow them to travel to all of the races. It allows them to still be seen. And Neve Bradbury, and if you look back, even at Jay Vine in the fellas, the amount of Australian and New Zealand riders that have prevailed in this opportunity, it just kind of highlights to us, doesn't it, that maybe our development pathways aren't developed enough and that perhaps we have a lot of really untapped talent within our system. And I think you're spot on, Donna, because I think Neve Bradbury not only has kind of the tenacity to do it, but just baseline physiology.
And it's been very tough. Oh, sorry, John.
No, go.
It's been very tough for our Australians trying to develop and break through to race in Europe with COVID, because we haven't been allowed to travel without having a contract to go to. So we've basically had 2 years with the only opportunity is through something like Zwift.
Yeah, she's amazing. Her dad, Hayden Bradbury, was a really good bike rider back in the old days. But I thought we'll move on. Let's move to the Australian summer. We've got our consummate team, our dream team. We'll get to the Australian summer. Start with the number one event, of course, the Bay Crits. Who would we have? Who would we have as leader for the Bay Crits?
Well, look, John, I am, as you know, a very big fan of the Bay Crits. And I think if we look kind of to our Pro Tour talent, nobody goes past me more than Chloe Hosking. Chloe is the most capable criterium rider. Gracie, if we turn to your suggestion that they have it at World Championships, which would be unreal, Chloe is absolutely the number one rider I would think is capable of doing that. And she not only can win it, John, but I think she can play such an incredible mentorship through that. And I remember my final year in the Bay Crits with Pitch Partners, and we had such a great group of development riders doing that. It was such a great event. I mean, Gracie, who do you look to? Because I think a really obvious person is Sarah Roy, but these are our more developed athletes. But if you look to younger athletes, Gracie, who are you looking at for things like Bay Crits? Because actually on the measure, and this is big kudos to you, John, is that the Bay Crits actually serve as a very good litmus test for which professional riders make it in the overseas world tour.
For sure. The Bay Crits is such a nice opener. Obviously, you have a bit of a risk in crashing right before nationals, but if you can get through it scot-free, it's such a great opener to, get the body that final tuning before some really hard races. You can't go past Chloe Hosking. She's not just one of the fastest Australian women. She's one of the fastest women in the world and has been for quite a long time. And she's my pick for the Worlds this week. No pressure, Chloe. I don't think she's actually going to come back for the summer. She'll stay in Europe just because of the COVID restrictions. So I really like to see someone that's really under the radar, but has actually been around for a long time. She's still quite young, which is Josie Talbot. She's very fast, racing in America. I'm not sure if she's going to get back to racing. She had a really big crash this year and has had to take a lot of time out to recover from that, but she's got so much talent and she's got a good race head on her. I'd really like to see her get over this pretty awful crash injury and get back to it. I think she has so much more to offer, and she's had a bit of bad luck with teams as well, not just with the crash. So yeah.
Gracie is perfect point, because Josie is one of those athletes who, if it was under 19 to World Tour, would have had a lot of trouble. It's taken her longer to develop. She had so much talent as an under 19, but it's been a real step-by-step development for her. And, and I agree with you. That is she's literally one of the most talented riders I think we could have if we can develop her properly. Donna Rae, I asked the question to you because you are really at the coal front of this development process. And what is happening with the women? I mean, who are the women who can take that next step? We mentioned all these big names, but who are the young names who you think could step up to this?
I'll throw another one into the mix. Obviously Josie, because you beat me to it, Gracie. I was going to put Josie's name up. Another rider I see that's going to have a future in cycling is Anya Lowe, who is currently with ARA in racing in that opportunity. I had Anya in the national team at Junior Worlds, and then the following year in the senior development team, and she impresses me. She's a racer, very skilled and very astute. So, yeah, I'm throwing Anya's name in the mix.
I thought what we might do is just group, because otherwise, the way we're going now, it's going to be the longest podcast of all time. So I thought we might just group the nationals and the TDU, which will most likely be a national event next year, and hasn't been announced yet, but that's the way it's looking, obviously. And it's also the Tour of Gippsland, the Michelin Tour of Gippsland, and the Melbourne of Warrnambool in February. The riders you'd put into those group of Australian especially the national championships, because we've got a new dream team. It's very important to get that that national jersey.
I'll go first. I'll pick my first two riders, and then Donna and Gracie, you can supplement me. And I'm sorry if I pick two that don't work with your team.
Get in first.
I know. I'm going to choose Sarah Roy. as my first, because I think that she's developed an incredible amount in the last couple of years. Strategically, she's a sprinter, but she's also done a lot of work as a worker, and I think that she could be an incredible role model for the youngers and teach them. And the other person, and there might be a mild controversy about this because of her age in the sport, but I think is Rachel Neylan. Because Rachel has had an abnormal development through the sport. She came from rowing, she came to it late, and she has had challenges that a whole lot of riders can really attest to. And so I think they're my two. And I'm also going to throw out Lauren Rowney as our team director. So there are my three. I've got team director, Roy, and I've got Neylan in there. So now you guys get to throw in.
I think it's going to be at Nationals. It's going to be a great showdown between Grace Brown, who's leaving Bike Exchange. She's going to Francais du Jour, and between her and Amanda Spratt staying at Bike Exchange and Sarah Gigante, who's going to Movistar. It's going to be a battle royale between those three on the Nationals course. But I'm going to say something controversial. If we could change the Nationals course, which I think we should, even though I've won on it twice, I think that a sprinter deserves to get a national title for the first time in a very long time. I think it's unfair that some of our best riders in the world who can sprint aren't given that opportunity. Donna?
Yeah.
I'll leave that one with you.
Over to you, Donna. You get the rest.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to go with my original statement, and I'm going to throw Ruby Roseman Gannon's name up for Road Nationals in January.
Oh,
Good
yes.
stuff. Love
I
it.
like that.
So we'll move on to the World Tour one-day events, because we've got not going to have time to go through each event. But let's talk. We've got our dream team. We've got Strade Bianche, the Ghent Wevelgem, the Ronde van Vlaanderen, Paris-Roubaix, Amstel Gold, La Flèche Wallonne, Liège, Bastogne, Liège. Wonderful classics. Who would you? There are some riders that are going to be more suited to each. Since you were last in the last round, Donna, you can go first this time. Who would be your number one rider for those races?
I'm going to start with my team captain, and I'm going to put Tiff Cromwell in as my team captain, because that's what you need to get your team through the race.
Yep. But
yeah,
also, but I agree. But who is your potential, number one rider as far as getting on the podium?
As far as getting on the podium, I'll go with Grace Brown. Yeah. But sorry, to me, as a DS, if we don't have the Tiff Cromwells, it's a lot harder for the number one rider. So I was just being a DS.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Well, that is your job, Donna. Absolutely.
Gracie?
I'm going to keep with the theme from Donna. I think it's super important to have a team around you to win a race. You can't just have a team of winners. And someone that's really impressed me for a long time now, but particularly this year, is Loretta Hansen. She's with Trek, and she is turning out to be a super domestique. She's done some amazing things for her very famous teammates this year, and she's a great rider in her own right. And I think once she gets that opportunity, she's really worked on her engine. She can sprint, and she's smart, and she's very consistent. So I think you can take her to a race to do a lot of work, and she can, deliver if she's asked to, if she's put in a position of leadership, or if it comes up in a race, which it sometimes does if one of the leaders crashes out. So I think she's got some big things coming.
Yep.
Okay.
And, so wholeheartedly agree with that, Gracie. Like I was nodding like a crazy lady. I think that Loretta Hanson, that what I love about her is not just that she's so capable on the bike, she's such a good leader and she's so good to have around. She is such a great personality. And despite all of the crap that she's been through, and she's had so many injuries and struggles along the way, she's always found a way to really persist through. I love her resilience, and I really agree with that. I mean, I think that between Grace Brown and Loretta Hanson, like we've got an awesome kind of base here. Donna, I think that you should be in the car. I think Lauren Rowney should be in your director's co-seat. What a team we have already. But I think Neve Bradbury could be in there as well, because I really believe in the strength of development riders. She's so capable in doing a great job. Tiff Cromwell on the road also does such a great leadership role. And on a good day, she is absolutely capable of pushing for any great top result. But on an off day, she is still there and she's still able to really guide the ship. So I think that, in kind of summary, John, I think Aussie women's cycling is in really good hands. We have such a great group of young women and more advanced women who have really seen their day in the sport. And what I really hope for, honestly, is that, Donna, in the coaching stakes, you get more people on your side in directing and in coaching. And we have people like my sister, Nat, who's doing a really great job on the coaching side. But that some of these riders who retire step up to do that as well, and so that we can continue that path, because that's something that my generation didn't have. If I look back at my generation, there's nobody except my sister who's in any ranks, directing, coaching, any role at all. And I really hope this younger generation, and I'm looking right at you, Gracie, is empowered to step into these leadership roles within the sport, because I think times are a changing, John, and
right.
Time now.
Yeah.
We haven't discussed this at all, have we, Gracie?
So we'll move on to the tours. So let's go to the big one. And just how excited are you guys to get the Tour de France back? It's not quite as long as what it was when back when you were riding in it, Donna. But we'll start with you, Kate. So what are your thoughts on Tour de France next year?
I am so excited by the Women's Tour de France, like beyond excited. I think that it is about time. And I have to be honest, when I was a rider, I would have been ruining the day they brought this back. I was not the kind of road rider who liked anything more than about 3 days. The Giro d'Italia for the women in 10 days was too much, but I think it is a huge opportunity. And again, we've mentioned Zwift, but for Zwift to massively step up and take on board the sponsorship and the support of that, I think shows that a global company with global influence is supporting the women's cycling. How good is that? I'm so excited about it. From an Aussie perspective, all eyes, I think, are very targeted on riders like Sarah Gigante. I think Rachel Neylan in her day could have loved this. I think she's probably in the twilight of her career where she hopes to ride one and then move on from the sport. But we have some really great riders, and that we've a lot of the names we've mentioned tonight, John, that I think can really, really be very successful at the Women's Tour de France. And Donna, I feel like for you, this must be like a renaissance and about time that this came back.
Yeah, it was just the most incredible experience of my cycling career to be able to ride the Tour de France on the same roads as the men and everything. And women should be there. So I'm absolutely thrilled that it is being reintroduced. It's overdue, and it's just incredible.
I think it's so cool. I think it's so cool that Donna has raced it in the past, and were there many crowds there when you did it?
It was, well, we had the same crowds as the men. So the way if the men raced 200K, the women did 100. So we started or finished at the same place as the men. So the same crowds in the mountain stages, everything, the Champs-Élysées, the final day. Yeah, so I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Benji Nason, do you believe the women's aspect of the sport should us as the men's side as a okay, that'll do, as a template for growth, or should it invent a new system taking in the differences between men's and women's cycling?
I love Benji, and I love the Lantern Rouge podcast, and I love that he's just quit his job as a developer to commit to the cycling. I love that. So shout out to Benji. But I think that women's cycling, men's cycling, same. I mean, we're a bit far behind. Gracie, what do you think? I mean, I think we're further behind in the development, but there should be zero, in my mind, reason why in the future, women's, men's, it should just be cycling.
I think there's a lot of nuance to this conversation. I think there's so much tradition entrenched in cycling, and the caveat to that is the tradition is entrenched in men's cycling, and women's cycling feels like they have that tradition, but we actually don't, because we've only been racing some of these races for 10 or 20 years, not 100 years. So it's tricky because we have so much prestige put on some of these monument races. And I don't want to say we shouldn't do Flanders, we shouldn't do the Tour de France, because these are beautiful races. They're great to watch. They have a lot of cultural significance in the countries that they're in. But on the other hand, women's cycling doesn't need to follow the model of men's cycling completely. And that goes much further than just the race calendar. But I'd love to see, much more tiered racing in the women's calendar. At the moment, nearly all top races are World Tour races. So there's 25 or more World Tour races. And because of the way that our teams are structured, it doesn't allow a lot of development teams to come as wildcard or invited entries. So there's a lot of teams that don't get to do some of the races with the top team. They don't get that nice developmental experience. And the lower races struggle because they're not getting enough people at them. So it's a really tricky debate. I'd really love to see, I thought the Hammer Series was a really great event, not for the men, but for the women. I wish we could have introduced that for the women and used that as an under 23 series and almost like a draft pick. I think we have the ability to shape our calendar, including some of the traditional races, but making a new scene for women's cycling, because it is a little bit different to men's cycling. It's shorter, it's more dynamic, it's less predictable and less controlled. And I don't believe that we should be doing equal distances to men. I think that keeps coming up as well. I think that that won't encourage good racing or healthy racing. So I think it's a really tricky topic and not one that easily solved, but I think it's a really great question. So thanks for the comment, Benji.
He is a legend. And look, it's amazing just the steps that women's cycling has taken in the last probably 4 or 5 years, and it's just going to keep improving. But it's interesting to hear what you're talking about and those other challenges. And you're dead right, because the development of the youngsters is what's going to make it super successful. And we've got to find the pathways to get them into the sport. I reckon we've done well. We've gone well past the hour. So just to finish off, so we don't need to talk about anything else, but Kate, to finish us off on this, on the dream team and what we're spoken about tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Australia has a lot of talent, but what we really need to do is make sure that our women, the Amanda Spratts, the Grace Browns, the Rachel Naylands, the Sarah Roys, when they do come to the end of their career within the professional sport, that we don't lose them and their knowledge and their hindsight. Because if we look back at what Donna has done and the incredible insight that she provides to our young riders, it is so invaluable. And, I think, Donna, you would agree that this is the pathway to success for the Aussie riders, is to make sure we don't lose that knowledge.
Yes. I've had the pleasure and joy of mentoring a number of women into the role of being a DS or being a coach. And I hope to be able to do more and provide more opportunities. It is a challenging environment because there's not a lot of positions available. But yeah, we've got some really good women, and let's hope that we can create more opportunities.
And
Yep,
Gracie?
Yeah, I think that's something that I'm really passionate about too, and that's why I started the mentor program through the Cyclists Alliance. I think mentoring within the sport is really important, to have younger riders being mentored by older riders. But another key part of our mentor program was having riders that were about to retire or who had retired, for them to, be able to mentor the riders coming through cycling, about to go through transition, and also being mentored by people out in the industry to, provide experience and pathways to internships in some of the major brands. I want to keep women in all positions in cycling leadership, such as coaching and DS roles, but also in bike brands like Specialized and Trek. Like, if we have women and diversity across all of these spaces, that's only going to improve the whole landscape, and that's including men's cycling too. I think that they can do with a bit more diversity and a bit less Lefebvre's. So I think, yeah, it's super important. I really enjoy mentoring. I'm certainly just a beginner at it, and I'm really grateful to have people like Kate and Donna in my network, because they've certainly been there for me. And including a few other women in Australia, but there's really not that many. It's really sad when people just fall off the radar after sport, and I think that's a lot to do with their satisfaction in the sport. So I think once we have more professionalism, which we are getting now, of better salaries, better working conditions, people aren't leaving the sport so bitter, and they're wanting to give back, and that's a really positive thing.
Well, ladies, I've got to say thank you very, very much. It's been absolutely sensational to have you trying to keep me in line, but getting the insight into just where women's cycling is going. We are having another show on Saturday night to preview the women's race, which will be about to start. YouTube.com/the Detour podcast. Remember to subscribe to YouTube, and you'll get all the notifications. And any of you ladies would like to come and have a chat about the Worlds on Saturday, you're welcome to come and join Phil Liggett and myself. We'll allow Dan back. He'll be back. But I'm really looking forward to the weekend for the world titles. I mean, they're always amazing, but a world title in Flanders, around virtually the Flanders course. And you're right, I'm going on Saturday with Chloe, because remember, she is the defending champion of the Bay Quits, so right there. Get that in. But look, thanks heaps. Also, for anyone who wants to do the Phil Liggett safari ride, there's another one coming up in a couple of weeks, so jump on to www.kaika.co.za/peloton, and you can get all the information on that. Phil's been great, so he's back on Saturday night. But thanks heaps, ladies, and if you're around, we'll talk to you on Saturday night. But goodbye all.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Great to see you.